92.3 AM 1620. Good morning. This is Nick Stewart on And It Came to Pass. Welcome to the program today. With us on the phone right now, we've got a special guest. Our guest this morning has been the pastor of Hickory Hammock Baptist Church for over 30 years. He speaks at conferences. He's made numerous television appearances like The Jim Baker Show, Skywatch TV. He's been has a radio show, Freedom Friday, on our sister station, WEBY. And he's an author. He has a brand new book just released on Friday titled The Rabbi, The Secret Message, and the Messiah. We welcome our friend Carl Gallups. Brother, how are you this morning?
Nick Stewart, man, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. What an honor.
It's my pleasure, and I want to talk about this new book that just got released, The Rabbi, The Secret Message, and the Identity of the Messiah. And tell us what you can about this.
Yeah, I will. Listen, I'll give the quick story. Let me first just recommend that your listeners, if they have any interest in what they're getting ready to hear, just use my name, carlgallups.com. Put .com behind my name, and then across the top of the page, you'll see the big banner for this book. Click on it. That goes to the book's website, the official website. From there, you can order it if they want to. They can get it anywhere where good books are sold. But the cool thing is you can learn a lot about more details about what the book's about, plus you can click the read inside, and you can read 30, 35 pages, several chapters right out of the book. It'll give you an idea. You can see the whole table of contents and the reading, the writing style and the story, and I think you'll be hooked. But that way people can look before they think about buying and see if it's what they want. But anyway, yeah, this story is true. It's incredible. It's unbelievable. If it wasn't so well documented and well known around the world, you would think you were reading fiction, but it's not. It's absolutely true. Everything in it is profusely documented and referenced. Eyewitnesses. It is written with, I have written it with Messianic Rabbi Zev Porat, Z-E-V, and is his first name, last name P-O-R-A-T. He is the CEO, director of Messiah of Israel Ministries out of Tel Aviv, Israel. He was born and raised in Israel, speaks Hebrew as his first language, was trained in the rabbinical schools of the Sanhedrin Council as a certified Sanhedrin rabbi. His father was a rabbi. His grandfather was a rabbi. His great-grandfather were rabbis. They were members of the Dayan, which is the Israeli rabbinical courts. That's what he comes out of. His mother, on her family, several of his mother's relatives, Zev's uncles, are high-up officials in the Israeli government. In fact, so high up that I'm not even allowed. Zev doesn't want me saying where they serve. So the bottom line is he's deeply connected to the Israeli government and to this story through the rabbinical story.
And he's very interesting because he's been on your show Freedom Friday, and he's a super interesting guy.
Yes, he is, and he's a born-again believer. And listen, I'm going to just tell you a quick little thing. All of this is in the book. I mean, this story is so detailed, but the bottom line is he gave his life to Christ some years back as a result of a man witnessing to him for over 5 years. Zev resisted, but then Zev had a vision of the Messiah that just like the Apostle Paul just knocked his socks off. He surrendered his life to Christ. He's been a global missionary for Jesus Christ. But here's the thing. His family has completely disowned him because of this, because they are all Orthodox Jews. His grandfather left him $40 million of cash, properties, etc. The lawyer's office called him in to tell him all of this, but his grandfather left a piece of paper saying you have to sign this piece of paper publicly renouncing Jesus Christ or else you get nothing.
Wow.
Zev walked out, turned down $40 million. Brother, you'd be surprised the people we've told this to on national, international television, radio. He's gotten letters and cards, and so have I, from people saying, oh, I would have taken it, and then I would have just gone on and served Jesus, but I would have taken the money. You know, brother, and that's how the world thinks.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
He walked away from it. He said, I will never put my name on a piece of paper that renounces Jesus Christ. But I haven't even told you the story of the rabbi, but I'm going to take a breath in case you have something you want to say.
No, you're good. But it is the background, working with Zev and how you guys come about this story. And I heard a little bit about this story before. But this is just fascinating stuff, and I think it's important that the background, how you guys got together, how you worked together on this, is vitally important to the story as well.
I'll tell it all, yeah. And again, it's so much more detailed than all of this, and this story covers so much. I just beg your listeners to at least go to the website and read some portions of it. The background is fascinating, but let me just say again, this is a true story, and the reason we've written this book is because it connects to today's headline news and the prophetic happenings in our world now, even though the whole thing began to unwrap back in 2005. By the way, in 2013, I wrote the first book and the only book in the world picked up by a major publisher. It was published in 5 languages. It was made into a documentary movie, which was produced in 3 languages, or subtitled in 2 languages and spoken in 1. And they've gone all over the world. I wrote the first book on this story, and it was published in 2013. Now, people may say, well, why in 2019 are you releasing another book about the story? Because so much more has happened. The world has changed. Prophecies have have burst forth before our eyes that are connected to this story. And Zev and I met in the midst of all of this. We're traveling the world together on international television, doing media, talking about it, and telling people it's rocking the religious world. Here's the story in a nutshell. In 2005, Israel's most famous rabbi, Yitzhak Kaduri, he died at the age of 108, but in 2005, in October, he stood in his pulpit in a synagogue in Jerusalem at 108 years old and told his congregation that he had met Messiah in a vision. He knew who Messiah was. He knew the name of the real Messiah. He was going to leave it in a note to be posted on his internationally known website. He had a huge ministry. He was kind of the Billy Graham among the Orthodox Jews, if you will, of Israel. And he said, I want this note posted 1 year after I am dead. Now, my book explains why he wanted it done 1 year later. We don't have time to go into all that this morning. But the bottom line is, he also mentioned that Messiah would not come until after Ariel Sharon had died. Now, Ariel Sharon was the prime minister in 2005. He had just given away the Gaza Strip. The whole world was mad at him, or not the whole world, excuse me. You know, the conservative Christians were, and many conservative Israelis and Orthodox were very mad at him. But Kaduri tied the coming of Messiah to after the death of Ariel Sharon. Ariel Sharon died just less than 5 years ago, so it's been very fresh. He was in an 8-year coma. So in October 2005, Kaduri says this, and then in just a few weeks, January 2006, Sharon has a stroke and goes into a coma that lasts for 8 years, and then he dies in 2014. But a few days after Sharon is put in the hospital in Jerusalem, Kaduri develops pneumonia. I mean, out of the clear blue. His mind is sharp as a tack. His health is good. He's 108, but he gets pneumonia. He goes in the same hospital, and a few days later, he's dead. So 1 year later, January 2007, the note is posted on his website. It's written in kind of a cryptic manner, which was typical to Kaduri, but it was deciphered by several of his students in his rabbinical training school that he had been secretly teaching the scriptures and what the vision was to him. They are now all born-again believing Christians, and all of this is in the book. But the bottom line is they decoded the note because they knew the encryption key that he had left, and the note said that the name of the real Messiah is Yeshua, which is Hebrew for Jesus, Jesus Christ. Well, it rocked the world, brother. I mean, immediately his ministry officials took the note down. They destroyed it. We now have firsthand knowledge of how it was destroyed, where it was destroyed. It's a stunning story. This is a part of the new book, the new story. All of this came to light in the last few years. We've got new witnesses, the outblast, the fake news, the deep state of Israel, the global shutdown of this story. I mean, you can just smell and feel the demonic all over it, the angelic, the cosmic spiritual war that's taking place over this. Because think of it, brother. That would be like if Billy Graham died and left a note that said that Muhammad had appeared to him and he's the real Messiah. I mean, to the Orthodox Jew. So the bottom line is that's the story in a nutshell. It's way more complicated than that, but the book lays it out in a narrative, like a novel format. There's a lot of background story, a lot of backstories, a lot of never before told stuff, plus some wonderful Bible teaching coming straight from Zev, who speaks Hebrew, who just blows your mind with the Hebrew language and the scriptures and what they really mean. Go ahead, brother.
No, that's fine. And I'm just, it's amazing how all this comes together and the impact this can have. I can't wait to dig into the book. I just got it on Friday, so I just can't wait to dig into the book and really digest this stuff. And I'm sure I'll have questions like I did for you from the last one. So just want to pick your brain. I love that part of it. So, but awesome. That's very cool. And so tell us again where they can get the book.
Yeah, thank you. Well, you get it anywhere good books are sold. Anywhere. Secular bookstores, Christian bookstores. Of course, if you're on the Internet, of course, Amazon's got it. They're shipping now. Books A Million, Barnes & Noble, all of them. It's called The Rabbi, The Secret Message, and the Identity of Messiah. In case people forget that, all you have to do is remember my name, Carl Gallups, and you can put .com, go to my website. There you can click, you can see it, you can read inside, you can read all kind of stuff about it, you can watch some videos, listen to interviews, etc. And but the other thing I want to tell your audience is this book is going. My publishers are flying me to Israel in a couple of months. They've already employed a film crew. They're going to make another documentary movie. This movie will be made about this book and the updated story. I will be hooking up with Zev Parat in Israel. This is going to be a gripping documentary movie. We're going to go into the dens of those who have persecuted Zev and these believers. We're going to get interviews with them. This is going to be great. But I'm telling you, this story is not only a fascinating true story that people are going to love, but as I said, it's filled with amazing Bible teaching, things that'll just blow you away that you don't hear in many churches.
Right.
It's good for preachers, teachers, Bible studies, etc. Plus, we deal with all the objections to the time the story first broke, and I wrote the first book, and it went around the world. So you can imagine the attackers came out and said, well, this is a lie, that's a lie, this didn't happen, that didn't happen. Well, I deal with all of those objections in this book because now with all this new evidence and all these new witnesses coming forward, it's going to really open the eyes of people that read it when they realize this demonic spirit of fake news and deep state that is sweeping the planet. And this book uncovers all of it and shows you what's really happening.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. Hey, can you stick around for a few moments? I want to pick your brain about a couple things
Sure.
if you got time. All right, so hold on for me.
Yes, please. I will take time. Thank you.
All right, very good. Hey, we got Pastor Carl Gallups, author, pastor, and he's going to be sticking around with us. We're going to talk some end time stuff, so hold on for us, all right? This is Nick Stewart, and this is Anna Kane to Pass. You're listening to News Radio 92.3 AM 1620. News Radio 92.3 AM 1620. Good morning. This is Nick Stewart. This is Anna Kane to Pass. Welcome to the program this morning. Our guest this morning is Pastor Carl Gallups from Hickory Hammock Baptist Church. Author, television guy, convention guy. He does conferences. He's a busy guy. Welcome back, Brother Carl. All right, so what I want to talk about this morning is the era that we live in. All right, we are looking at we're living Revelation. A lot of folks don't even kind of grasp what all is going on. Do you see the same things I see?
I do, and I've written a lot about this, and I love talking about it. I'll give the brief synopsis of it right now for your audience. And Pastor Nick, thank you. I'm honored to be your friend. I'm honored to be a fellow minister with you in the kingdom work, and I'm honored to be on your show today. The bottom line, folks, is this. I tell people all the time, we are now living in the most prophetic, profoundly prophetic times since the first coming of Jesus Christ. Now, that shocks people who haven't thought much about this. But here's the bottom line. Let's just start with this one thing alone, and then let me just go forward. So we're living, just last year, was the celebration of the 70th year of Israel's return. That was a 2,700-year-old prophecy that came to fruition finally in 1948. People say, well, that was done by the Gentile nations, and it was done by UN decrees, and that wasn't an act of God. But actually, the book of Isaiah, chapter 47, I think it is, I don't have it right in front of me right now, but I've got all kinds of preaching and teaching I do on this. Actually, God predicts when he says that he will bring Israel back, he actually says that it will happen at the hands of the Gentiles and the Gentile nations. And he tells Israel, he says, and then the Gentiles will bring you back on your shoulders and in your hands. The Gentile nations will be the people that I will use to bring you back. So that argument goes away. That is Israel. That is God. Ezekiel 28 and 38 and 39 say that God says, when I do this, when I bring them back, then the nations will know that I am God. This is God's sign to the world that we're living in the days very close to the return of the Lord. Now, I want your audience to know, I don't set dates, and I know you don't. I don't run around wringing my hands saying, oh, the Lord is coming, the Lord is coming, although I want him to.
Yes.
But I don't do that. I tell people, just get on with life. We're just here for 70 or 80 years. We don't know. I mean, every day is a gift. Pay the bills, mow the grass, educate your children, save for the future, but also understand the times in which we're living. So think about it, brother. Just 70 years ago, 70 little short years ago, there were only 3 network channels, and you had black and white television.
Right.
Look where we are now. Look what's happened to the world. The explosion of technology. The whole world is connected together. Instantaneous communication, information systems, transportation systems. Now we have the collapse of the Middle East, the collapse of Syria into an irreconcilable civil war. Those are the words of world leaders, by the way, which brought Russia with its troops into Syria, which brought them into compact with Persia, which is modern-day Iran.
Right.
Which is a prophecy fulfillment of Ezekiel 38 in the last days, that after Israel returns, that Gog and Magog will join with Persia and the other nations, Beth Togarmah, etc., which all line up with Turkey, Syria, Russian states, the Belarusian states, Iran, and most of the Middle East and parts of Africa, when you read through all of those nations and their tribal connections. And we're living it. Listen, Orthodox rabbis who don't even believe in Jesus Christ, don't even believe in the New Testament documents, they're in Israel continually in the mainstream Israeli media saying Ezekiel 38 is bursting forth before our eyes. Yeah. So we're watching that happen. Just a few months ago, Jerusalem was returned to Israel as the capital, another 2,700-year-old prophecy fulfilled right in our day just a few months ago, brother. On top of all of that, borders are collapsing around the world. Terrorism is the world's concern. I mean, all of these things are in the Scripture to one extent or another, not to mention the burgeoning technology of the corruption of all flesh, CRISPR-Cas9, genetic editing, the abortion, the number one cause of death globally. Abortion is the number one cause of death globally. The confusion of marriage, the confusion of genders, the confusion of sexuality. All of these things were spoken of in the Scriptures. There is a demonic outpouring like the world has never seen, and it is in our lifetime, and watch this, and only in our historical generation, and it all burst forth with the return of Israel.
Yep.
Now, that's where we are, and I could talk about this for hours. I could prove everything I've said and go even deeper. There's so much more than that. China's now in the Middle East. They've built their first international military base in Djibouti, which is on the Horn of Africa. They're supplying military troops into the Middle East to Russia. They are joined together. North Korea is joined with Iran. Iran is joined with Russia. Turkey is collapsing into a revival of the Ottoman Empire. The book of Revelation was given to the 7 churches of Turkey. The time of the end was spoken of to Turkey first, which is where the Noah's Ark was settled. It's where the Euphrates River is born. I mean, brother, I could go on and on and on. These are our days. We are living in the most prophetic time since the first coming of Jesus Christ. Does that make sense, Nick?
It does. It does. And then the other things that most people see as insignificant, we have terrible storms. We have earthquakes. I've been following the earthquakes over the last several weeks, and this week we had 134 earthquakes at 4.0 or greater all over the world. We have the blood moons, the lunar eclipses, all these things that are happening, the alignments of the stars, and people are asleep. They do not put together these things. They are not into God's Word. They're not watching. Jesus said to watch. Yeah. And we've got people and pastors that are not watching.
You're absolutely right. And here's how people miss it. Let me just speak to exactly what you just said, and then I'll speak to how people miss it. First of all, listen, all of these things that you just said, certain alignment of the stars, the blood moons, the earthquakes, the hurricanes, the storms, they've been around since time immemorial. But here's the deal. All of the expert organizations have published, and these are mainstream, these are not biblical and Christian sites, but they're publishing articles saying that there's a marked documented uptick in almost all of these things, and it's kind of unprecedented, and we're having unprecedented weather patterns, et cetera, that are being reported. So all of these things are connecting, but what makes it so monumentally important is the convergence. And again, the only generation in recorded history that has seen all of the convergence of all of the stuff you just said, plus the return of Israel, plus the return of Jerusalem, plus the collapse of the Middle East, plus the collapse of Western borders, plus the absolute demonic outpouring, plus the blasting forth of internet and technology and computing and artificial intelligence and robots and sex robots and killer robots. And I mean, I could go on and on. It's the convergence, brother. So when you add into the mix everything you just said about the uptick and earthquakes and hurricanes, well, that's in the Bible too.
Yep.
So when you add all this stuff together and realize that we're the first generation, here's the point, to see the convergence, because every generation has had wars, every generation has had earthquakes and storms, but not every generation has had the return of Israel, the return of Jerusalem, the collapse of the Middle East, and then the bursting forth of technology that the world has never seen, plus the uptick in all of this stuff, and it's all coming together to a pinpoint. That's what makes this so prophetic.
Yep.
Now, here's how prophecy is missed. Because you remember way back in the Garden of Eden, God told Satan, I will bring forth a seed from the womb of a woman that will crush your head. All right, it's Genesis 3:15. But in order for that to happen, when the baby was born in Bethlehem, that was thousands of years after God spoke that promise to Satan. And here's the point. During those thousands of years, God's word was marching forth. God didn't forget what he said. God was not slow in keeping his promise. A day with the Lord is like 1,000 years, the Bible says. 1,000 years is like a day. So it was only 3 or 4 days for the Lord before he pulled it off. And the Christ was born in Bethlehem. According to dozens of prophecies of the Old Testament, he fulfilled every one of them. But watch this. But when he was born, think of it. Who witnessed it? A handful of shepherds. Mm-hmm. A year or two later, maybe, the wise men came, because it says he was in a house in Bethlehem then when the wise men came. So at the cross, 33 years later, where were the shepherds? They weren't there. Where were the wise men? They weren't there. At least we're not told they are. Why? Well, they're probably dead, because they were probably in their 40s or 50s 33 years back when all of this happened. They're gone. Well,
all right, brother. Hey, brother Carl, I got to get out of here. We're out of time this one, but I appreciate you. We'll do this again because this is fascinating. All right, thank you, brother. And It Came to Pass is brought to you by Blues Angel Music.